Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux. Four stakes races at Laurel Park on Saturday. All pretty interesting ones. We're going to kick things off with race number 6. Now, this is the Dave's friend for sprinters going 3/4 of a mile. And Ashley, this is a big field, evenly matched horses. I think it could go so many different ways. You do have the defending champion in here, the number 11 Factor It In, who appears to be cycling back to his best form for Carlos Mencia.
I feel like the whole outside of the starting gate is really loaded with the talent. You can see Manny Juan here, who we know a year or two ago had some really good performances, was able to win the Grade 2 Phoenix back in 2022. Stage left is in good form. Greeley and Ben, the old timer who's hard knocking. He's been all right this year. He's got a win from those limited number of starts. So to me, kind of those outer 5 post positions, they all have live shots.
And what's fascinating about this race, Ashley, is it's a big field of sprinters, but according to our friends at Timeform US, they're not expecting a fast pace. They think this race could favor pace setters. No Sense was on the lead last time out. He's my honey badger, sort of a versatile type. Sir Alfred James, I have a feeling, is going to be sent out of there. And Factor It In, it is worth noting, while he has one from off the pace, he took this race last year in gate to wire fashion.
I agree with you, especially about Sir Alfred James in terms of his most recent race at Churchill. They went very fast. It's kind of the speed that you would expect to see in a race like that. In early November, he faced really nice horses miles ahead of next out winner, and he was just speedy. And even looking at, the effort 3 back at Laurel, he was really on the bit early. So I think the pace is going to be quick. Is it going to be blazing hot? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see with the big field.
A horse that would appreciate a blazing hot pace is the 6, Threes Over Deuces. Note the LP flag over his chiclet, which indicates he is the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. He won the Dave's Friend in 2021. Let's kick things off with the number 1, Dollarization, a horse that is down inside, but that didn't bother him at all when he won the Light the Fuse at Pimlico 3 starts back, going 3/4 of a mile. He received a really nice trip that day to win. Now, he's been off the board in his subsequent 2 starts, but he's capable of pulling off big price surprises.
Yeah, he's going to need an effort, I think, like the 1-3 back to be a contender in here. His last 2 for me, I just worry a little bit about kind of him flattening in those final stages where he's needed more. And I think with this field, you have horses that can certainly handle it on the front end at this distance, and you have some hard knocking closers. So I do think we're going to need to see an improvement. But if you go down the page, Dan, he can rattle off some big numbers every now and then.
A horse making a big jump up in class is the West Virginia bred, the number 2, Mystic O'Shaughnessy. This will be his stakes debut, but he's coming into the race in relatively good form. This is a runner-up effort against West Virginia breds, optional claiming types in his most recent outing. He seems to have a big look at this, Ashley, just isn't able to seal the deal while flattening out late.
Yeah, he does flatten out late. I do think it's a good performance. I think the big thing with him, though, my question is he a mountaineer horse? Some of his best races have been at the mountain where he's getting those 70+ fire speed figures. And even talking about a number like that, that's not going to be competitive enough against this group. But it's interesting to see he's going to change barns and make a local appearance.
He's my honey badger is the number 3. I really liked this horse's race 2 starts back during the Belmont at the Big A meet. He got involved in a bit of a speed duel with an 11-1 shot, put that horse in the rear view mirror, and then was just run down by a very sharp favorite that came back to win a graded stakes race. A bit disappointed in his first start back for David Jacobson at Laurel, but he was sort of sitting wide off a moderate pace.
Yeah, I think he maybe makes some excuses for that last out effort, and his talent's there. You can see he's been in hot connections barns. He's not been in for low claiming prices, 80,000, 62,500. And he's been claimed several times over the course of the past 12 to 13 months. I'm curious about him for 2 reasons. I think from a pace perspective, he's not a need the lead type. He can be very forward, but I think in terms of trip, if he's able to sit and make a move, he could have a say in the end of things.
The number 4, No Sense, was one of the better 2-year-olds down at Laurel back in 2020. Injuries, though, have sort of compromised his career somewhat. He still has potent early speed, but in his most recent start, he went to the front, and Sir Alfred James was just better than he was.
Yeah, and he was in those races at Monmouth against fellow New Jersey breds, and he fared well. He had Space Speaking, who really cleaned up at Monmouth and is really nice New Jersey bred. I thought last time out, though, you would have wanted more of a punch. Mind you, though, it was going 7/8. I think the cut back to 6 furlongs should suit him well, but he's had some time off here and there. And for me, I think horses need to be kind of consistently going, at least a horse like him, to really have a say.
Nico is the number 5. This is another West Virginia bred. He's won 2 of his last 3 starts. Now, both of those races came in sharp sprints, 4.5 furlong events, including this effort against state-bred allowance horses. Nico is a horse, though, with a very strong late kick. He receives a wonderful ride in this race, but he finishes it off well. And if the pace is hot, perhaps at a big price, he can sneak into the number. He is a horse that likes to run races and fires more often than not.
It's going to be interesting to see him, though, stretch out from 4.5 to 6 furlongs. He's had a lot of success at Charlestown, and I really can't take anything away from his most recent on-the-road effort. It was at Colonials on the turf. There's nothing I'm going to take away from that, but since then, he is a 2 for 3, and even looking at the race 2 back, he didn't run too well, but he was towards the back of the pack. Penguin Power ran very well, and he was able to turn the tables on him in that most recent outing.
Threes Over Deuces, the number 6, as I mentioned, won this race in 2021. It's easy to look at his career record and say, I'm starting to get a little tired of Threes Over Deuces act. He doesn't win very often. He often snatches defeat from the jaws of victory just when it looks like he's about to win. And when he does win races, it's by the scantest of margins. You have to time it just right with Threes Over Deuces, but I'd love to own him.
Why don't we all? I think he's been a very cool horse to watch over the years, and he still tries. My concern with him, though, in his last 3, he hasn't really made up any ground. At least in the past, he has been a little bit more forward, or even the start 4 back when he was able to win. He circled a compact field, and the pace was decent enough for him to get the job done. I'm just kind of wondering what's happened in those last 2. Now, though, he is making his 3rd start off that little bit of a freshening.
Sir Alfred James is a millionaire. He's one of 2 in here for Built Right Stables, trainer Ray Ginter, owner Lynn Cash. And last time out at Churchill Downs, he was probably in a little bit tough that day. I talked to Cash earlier on Thursday. He says those hard tracks at Churchill Downs really take a toll on Sir Alfred James. So he's happy getting him back to Maryland, where he's had a good amount of success. He is versatile. I think he's going to be aggressively ridden.
I think his last 2 efforts at Laurel were both really, really nice efforts, especially the winning one. I know he took a lot of respect in that race, but I thought it was a pretty tough race at the 7/8 distance. I like him going 6 furlongs, and I completely agree. I actually don't think he ran that poor last time out at Churchill, just seeing kind of the big names in there compared to what he's faced in Maryland. I just wonder, though, what the strategy will be with their connections. Are they going to have him try to close from off the pace? Will he be forward? I have a feeling he might be more forward, especially seeing that he's able to do that last time out.
Conversely, his uncoupled stablemate, the number 8, Cowan, according to Cash, is a 1-run closer that needs to be covered up as long as possible. He does not like to be uncovered. He's a horse that can be a little bit quirky behind the gate. Sometimes he's very tough to get into the gate. When he does, he's run well, just overmatched in his last 2 races against graded competition in New York, but he's earned some good figures.
He has earned some good figures. You see a lot of 90s as you go down the page, or upper 80s, and his win 3 back over a sloppy going to the Belmont at Aqueduct meet was a very nice win. He kind of split the field mid-pack early on and made a nice late move. Interesting to see him at Laurel. He did have that big gap between 2022 and 2023. I think my biggest thing with a horse like Cowan is I wouldn't take too short of a price on him. We've talked about his antics, and it's not like he shows up every single time.
If the number 9, Mailloux, returns to his best form, he can easily win this race. He won the Grade 2 Phoenix in 2022. He parlayed that effort into a 4th place finish in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Now, it's been a long time between drinks for Mailloux, but given the right scenario, he can make up some ground for Will Walden. It's really all about whether he gets the right pace setup and a trip.
Will Walden's barn's been one to watch over the last year or so. I mean, he's done really great, a young trainer, up and coming, and he's almost winning at 20%. Mailloux has always needed the pace setup, and he was getting that more in 2022. Some of his races, maybe I can find small excuses, and part of that goes to the pace, but others I can't. So maybe the change of scenery, maybe coming to Laurel and the new connections will get him back on track. The talent's there. It's just, it's been a while since we've seen those big efforts.
A sentimental favorite in here is the number 10, Greeley and Ben. He's still running very well at the age of 9. He's won 24 lifetime races, including his most recent start just 3 weeks ago in an allowance race. And he really had to summon up all of his class because this is a quality leader on the lead. Johnny Z from Albany is a stakes horse. Greeley and Ben really wants it.
If he does want it, he's going to need every bit of ground here. I thought he probably needed that race off the long layoff, and he also got a muddy track in that first race back. But here, I thought he closed really nicely up the inside. And you've talked about it. He's an old, hard-knocking horse. Look at his record, another one that I think we both would love to own. And I like that the connections, whatever the setback was for about a year, if they gave him the time, they didn't really rush him back to the races. And that's why you get rewarded with a performance like last time out.
The 11 factored in, earned a 101 Beyer speed figure in this race last year. He really had a strong 5-race span with 3 stakes wins and 2 graded stakes placings. Carlos Mencia gave him the summer off. I wonder if he's been looking for races like the Dave's Friend, maybe even to get into a race like the General George. In his second start off the layoff, he looked pretty good in this allowance race. There's our old friend Johnny Z from Albany on the lead. Factor it in, settled in the second flight, eased 3 wide, and he ran by this nice horse without much fuss.
Yeah, he's going to run really nicely here on the outside, and you kind of see him. He handled the off track just fine, even on that stalking trip, just off the pace. My thing about last year's edition of this race, compared to even some of his more recent races, they didn't go all that quick to the half. They went 46, and I'm curious to see now the tactics. I have a feeling what he's been able to do in his last 1 or 2 races where he sat the trip. I think we're going to see something similar, because I do think a couple others in here, they could be faster just depending how they break, and he's all the way towards the outside.
Stage left is the number 12, and David Jacobson's done a very good job with this guy since taking over his conditioning. He's found good spots for him. I liked how he won that Rumson Stakes. I think that distance was a little bit sharp for him, but he got into the race and he kept on going. His most recent effort, I think this horse needed a little bit of a confidence boost, and Jacobson found the right spot. It was a $50,000 starter allowance, and we see stage left. He just gets it done from off the pace. He is a horse you never want to underestimate.
Absolutely. I actually really like him in this race. I think in terms of his versatility, that's attractive. But I also like that just about every race he's taken that show on the road. This isn't a horse that kind of races at one track and maybe ventures out every now and then. You go down the page, Oaklawn, Laurel, Belmont Aqueduct, the Mid-Atlantic. He's been kind of everywhere, and it doesn't seem to phase him that much. And I thought last time out, he raced very well. I thought 2 back, he probably should have got the job done. Was just narrowly defeated and needed a little bit more ground. So I love him. Do I like Post 12? Obviously not going 6 furlongs, but hopefully his own class can kind of carry him.
So many different ways to go in this nice field. We're going to take a look at our top selections right now. You're going with stage left. He's a consistent horse. He runs fast Beyer speed figures, and I would expect him to make a good late run. I'm hoping Factor It In can go back to back in the Dave's Friend. I have a feeling he's racing himself back into good form.
We have a lot of the same horses, as we mentioned, kind of going through the card. They're all towards the outside of the starting gate. It's a really loaded kind of outside 5 or 6 runners, and for me, I just thought even with Post 12, maybe stage less versatility is enough for him to work out a trip.
You're going to go 12, 11, 8, and 7. I'm going 11, 8, 12, and 9. It's the Dave's Friend. It's one of 4 stakes races on a nice Saturday afternoon card at Laurel Park. Best of luck.